Welcome back to the podcast. My name's Parker. I'm joined by my two brothers, Granger and Tyler.
What's up?
What's going on, guys?
You guys have always have for years. Y'all have been like, you sound different when you're on camera. So I'm trying my best to be normal. That's what I was just telling you.
Yeah, it just takes time, man. It's hard. It's hard to talk in your normal voice. It's like when someone's filming you and they're like, all right, go walk from that pole to that pole. And then you like forget how to walk. And they're like, you're walking weird. Just walk normal. And then everyone's watching you and then you forget how to walk.
Or it's like a music video where they're going to shoot like a slow motion walk through a field. And it's like, you could walk regular speed, man. We're shooting at slow motion. But you naturally like want to move your arms slow.
Yeah. All right. Well, the way this podcast works is we typically split this thing up into three categories: faith, freedom, and the outdoors is the three pillars of our company, of our brand. And so we're going to kick it off with faith this episode. Granger, word on the street is you have something to say.
I have something in the faith category. You have freedom.
Yes.
You have outdoors. Is that right?
Yeah, I need to come up with something quick.
Yeah, you have about 10 minutes to come up
I
with
have
it.
outdoors if you don't, Tyler.
So here's faith. Parker, when did the Lord save you?
In January of 2021.
Tyler, when did the Lord save you?
March 2023.
You guys sure about that? Because grew up in a Christian home, went to church, mom told you the gospel. Are you sure the Lord saved you then?
I am sure.
Do you ever...
I said many prayers as a kid asking Jesus into my heart because I didn't want to go to hell. But I can tell you with confidence that I was not saved until 2021.
What about you?
Are
you sure about that?
Well, I know that I was reborn, and so you have to. The Bible says you have to be reborn, but you could also argue that God is sovereign and He knew. Like,
Yeah.
I guess on paper, like I wasn't saved, thought I was until March, but
Yeah,
God knew I was going to be saved.
Yeah, admittedly, that's like a nuance that God would know something, but there was a time when you weren't, and yet He knew you were, so technically you never were not.
Right.
Because He knew. I get that. But have you ever questioned in your mind, this is not a trick question, this is not like a gotcha moment. I do have something to show you guys as evidence of this, but I was just going to say, like, have you ever thought, because I've definitely thought, like, I wonder if I was saved earlier and just had super weak faith, or wasn't properly discipled and didn't know how to say it, or didn't have any fruit because I know that these are false thoughts, but I've wrestled with that occasionally. Especially with people that are like, yeah, I've been a Christian since I was 13, and how about you? And I'm like, I'm 39. They're like, oh, welcome to the faith, brother. And there's like a little bit of pride in me that's like, wait a minute, man. I've been a Christian as long as you have. We're talking about a technicality. But today, on this podcast, I have evidence that we actually were saved later in life. And it is on our GroupMe. We have had GroupMes. That's for everyone listening, that's like a messaging app. And we've had different GroupMes for different groups that we've been in. But us three, we have one called the 1%ers. Have you guys looked at that?
Mm-mm.
Ooh, it is evidence of the dead in our trespasses. This is, for instance, this is us talking about self-help and talking about the way of the world, us three. And all three of us are equally contributing in this group, but it's fascinating if you look through it. For instance, Parker said, this is December 12th, 2018. Parker said, gratitude seems to be the theme in finding true peace and happiness. And Tyler said, yes, it's the key to life. And Parker, posts this, and Tyler said, yes, this changed my life. It's called the Power List. It's a win the day philosophy. And then I chime in, and all of us just go back and forth, and it's basically a religion. And then I looked and looked for us to finally talk about the Bible, because I know we read the Bible. And I found
I
it.
didn't read the Bible in
Well,
2018.
Okay, well, watch this.
This was 2018.
2018. Parker says, on February 21st, 2019, Parker says, do y'all have a favorite Bible verse? Trying to learn some new ones. And Tyler said, when I'm afraid I will trust in you. And then you quickly went into a quote of a book that's not a Bible verse that says, being outnumbered, coming from behind, being low on funds, those don't have to be disadvantages. They could be gifts, assets that makes us less likely to commit suicide with a head-to-head attack.
What?
These things will force us to be creative, find workarounds. Like, it's just this crazy
Are
thing.
you sure that was like the same day?
Yeah, it's the same post, actually. When I'm afraid, I'll trust in you. But you quickly went back to your book. Reminds me of us going up against Florida country music and energy drinks. Florida Georgia Line selling 30,000 K first week. Red Bull and Monster. And all of us are like, yeah, amen, brother. But I thought that was so funny that Parker said, do y'all have a favorite Bible verse?
Yeah, because in 2018 is when I got exposed to like the self-help world. I was depressed walking through a Barnes & Noble, and I found a book called The Traveler's Gift and Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Extreme Ownership is still a great book. I don't really have anything against
We're not
that
saying
or
anything
Jocko.
against any of these books.
Yeah, I'm more just saying that like I became obsessed with this idea that the meaning of life would be found in personal development, and personal development in and of itself can be a good thing to help you grow your business, to find contentment, to be less angry all the time, to be a better father. But none of it is rooted in the Bible. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk too much. I've got a ton to say about it, because so much of my testimony has been reflecting on the fact that I was deceived for 26 years of my life, thinking that I was a Christian when my entire life contradicted everything that Jesus taught.
Yeah, my point is, if you want to see how far you guys have come, and me included, go to that 1%er group and just kind of flip through it, and you'll see where our heads were. It was self-development. What did you say? Is that how you said it?
Yeah, I said personal development.
Personal
self-help.
development was the goal. Like, that was the means of happiness. Heath Evans is on my podcast that comes out this coming Monday. It was a really good conversation. He had such a great, because he's such like a focused alpha go-getter, but it's all gospel centered. So he's like, I train my body, I train my mind, I eat right, because if I'm going to be a disciple, a follower of Christ, if I'm gonna learn His Word, if I'm gonna tell others about Him, I need to be focused. How am I supposed to read my Bible if I didn't get enough sleep last night? How am I supposed to understand some component of the gospel when I'm not fueled correctly because I've been eating junk food? How am I like? And I was like, man, that's the best argument for personal development because of the gospel that I think I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you about why I love 75 Hard. Because I'm just locked in, and it gets me great sleep. I get up at 5 a.m., I read my Bible, and if I'm not doing it, then I'm going to bed, I'm eating junk, or I'm not on my diet or whatever. I'm going to bed later. I sleep in. I miss my Bible study or whatever.
Yeah.
So in his case, like, I'm very similar, where I got to be locked in, and it helps me lock in with Jesus better.
We were right in the 1%er group. Like, our heads were right. We just had the wrong goal. We were aiming at the wrong thing. We were aiming at ourselves.
I mean, look at the name of the group, the 1%ers.
Yeah.
What does that say? We want to be elite. We want to be better than everybody else. Everybody else is below us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the most self-righteous, pretentious.
And the true 1%er is the hat I'm wearing. That's the 1%er, the lost one, not the one that's better than everyone, but the one that's actually lost. That's the 1%er that we were. So yeah, our minds were we had the right technique and the wrong goal. We were aiming at ourselves, But if you're Heath and you're aiming to God, then you truly understand. Like Tyler said, I totally agree, man. What's better for my Bible reading? I'm sick, I'm out of shape, I haven't been eating well, and I didn't sleep well. Is that good for my morning Bible reading? Am I going to get a lot out of that reading? No. So yeah, totally.
Yeah. So let me throw another wrench into the whole conversation for y'all to both chew on. I want to hear y'all's thoughts, but and this is a topic of God being sovereign and in control. When we all got saved, you and me at like 40, right? And then you at 30.
27.
With you and me on the music journey, God took us and is like, now you're mine. I'm taking you now. But before that, like when we were doing music, we probably wouldn't have done it if we were saved. Right?
Yeah,
It's a good thing to think about, like with the temptations, with the drinking, with the substances, with the idolization, the look at me, with the whatever, all that stuff that goes along with that. That's very hard. It's doable, but it's very hard as a believer to be locked in and 100% solely pursuing Jesus. It can happen, but that's another conversation. But what I'm saying is, it's cool for me in my mind to at least think God allows everything to happen. He's in control of everything. For him to build that platform through us with music and with Yee Apparel, to build it to a certain point and then completely redeem it from floating rivers and killing livers to Christ as King. You know what it's so cool to think about.
I have to be very careful with what I'm about to say, because I want to say it with the utmost humility and not compare it in this way. But Moses has that story, saved at 40. God built a platform with Moses. Once again, I am not comparing ourselves to that story. I'm just saying we do see parallels where God built a platform with Moses, favor with Pharaoh, favor with the Egyptians, and then he saves him at 40 and uses that same favor and platform that he built to then be the leader of his people to take them away from Pharaoh. No one else in the kingdom of Israel, no one of that people group could have risen as a slave to the position to speak to Pharaoh personally and speak his language and say, I'm taking my people out, except Moses, who God set apart to do that, build a platform outside of God, and then activated him. So in a much tiny scale from that, he does that, and that same idea echoes, and that happened to us. He also saved Jeremiah very young, so he also does the opposite. There's no rhyme or rhythm, but he saved Jeremiah as a young boy, and Jeremiah was saying, I can't. Moses was saying, I can't do this, and God was saying, I tell you that you can do this. Jeremiah was saying, I can't do it because I'm too young, and God says, don't tell me that you're too young. I say what you're going to do. So it's no rhyme or reason, but it is something that happens. People get saved at 40 and use the platform that was once for sin, killing livers and floating rivers, killing livers, and the favor with Pharaoh.
It brings up a good topic that I think that is kind of the elephant in the room with Yee, and it's like, so is Yee just like a Christian brand now? Like, why all of a sudden like this Christ is King stuff? Like, I grew up watching Earl Dibbles Jr. putting good dips in, throwing back beers, taking off his shirt, Stone Cold Steve Austin and him over his face. Just like redneck debauchery, good old fashioned American humor. Are these guys just like a bunch of hypocrites now? Is this just what happens when you have kids? Why is like Yee Yee posting a Bible verse on my feed on a Sunday morning?
Does that question actually have a legitimate voice to it, or are you just making that up?
I'm kind of just playing the devil's advocate of like the person out there that's just like confused of like, I mean, even our vendors, our wholesale rep was like what is Yee Yee? Like, what story am I giving out there? Is this Earl Dip? When I ask when I've asked people what Yee Yee means, they say packing dips and chugging beers. That's what the average American hears. So why all of a sudden is this like, why are you making Christ his king?
Is that a real story?
Yeah, our wholesale rep said that.
What did you say?
It's not an easy answer because as a business guy, you do want to like make sure that your brand messaging makes sense, and to a certain extent, that is when the common person associates your brand with that. It's probably pretty foolish to start coming out with all this other stuff and to completely change your messaging.
Well, isn't that the point? And they'll start associating it with Christ.
Hopefully, I just didn't have any examples of anybody who's ever done that. And so many ways it was a risk for us to just all of a sudden, like, why to talk about God, to come out with faith stuff. And there was a chance that like we would go out of business when we started doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's opinion is different on what they think he means to them. But if you're asking me, and then Granger can answer, what was the question, like, why faith now?
Yeah. Yee Yee. This guy is saying Yee is packing dips, chugging beers, mudding trucks. It ain't John 3:16. Yeah,
I don't know. For me, it's like, you know, on my deathbed or when I get to heaven and see Jesus, it's like I would rather this company completely go away and make no money if the perception of who we are is that Jesus is our Savior.
I heard one of my seminary professors recently in a lecture was talking about a legacy that he is trying to build that outlives his mortal body. You know, because all of us are going to be, our bodies will be 6 feet under the ground, and we have a opportunity to create a ministry that lives past our flesh, so that people could know and learn and hear and see and feel and wear the gospel after we're no longer telling it, because we're already glorified with the Lord. That is a really cool thought that I don't think until my professor said that, I hadn't really thought that we have this opportunity on earth right now to tell others the good news of Jesus. We also have an opportunity to create an ongoing ministry that goes after we die. That's a cool thought.
I listen to more dead guys than I do live guys.
I do too.
I was reading Jeremiah Burroughs last night. I was reading Spurgeon last night. I was listening to R.C. Sproul this morning.
Those men, besides R.C., because he's the freshest in the ground, but definitely the other guys have had a much bigger ministry after they died. Much bigger. So we should ask that of ourselves as well. And not all of us are going to have, you know, the literature that those guys had, but we have an apparel company. And what if it continues on, and the gospel is, I like the idea that the gospel is worn long after we're gone. What if someone comes to faith, the Lord saves them through his word, through something that we put in motion in this season of our lives, and we're gone when that person comes to faith? That's a really cool mission. But to answer the question, we actually struggled with this a couple years ago, because we were like, you remember when we were talking, like, well, we could have an apparel company, an outdoor apparel company, and we don't, just because we're Christian doesn't mean we have to put Bible verses all over it. Like,
and we still agree with that.
And we still agree with that. And we could just make our shoes with excellence. You know, we could be the excellent shoemaker and make really, really good shoes. And the excellence that we put in is because of the value that given to us by Christ. Basically, we look at it that way.
Just like someone can be an airline pilot and glorify God, just like someone can work at Chipotle and they don't have to quit and go be a missionary in Thailand, just like somebody can work at their accounting job and glorify God in the way that they do their work and have integrity and interact with people.
Yep. But and I agree with that, and we could wrap that up with a bow and be done with it. But there's two outside factors that pushed Yee Yee to where we are now, as I see it. Number one, we were coming up against the stigma of floating rivers and what is it?
Killing livers.
Killing livers and floating rivers. We were coming up against the packing dips and cracking a cold one stigma that I started. So we're coming up against that stigma. So it's not like we're starting from scratch, making a good apparel company. Like we were actually coming up against, the gospel was coming up against the very thing that we set in motion to start the company. So we had to deal with that.
Which the gospel often does.
The gospel
which
often
is
does.
why people often choose the world instead, because they kind of inherently know what Jesus is asking, and the ask is too great.
Yeah,
They
cost
can't.
is too much.
They can't see the value, like you said. Like Joe Rogan. Last thing I'll say. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
is,
that's all right.
Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson have both asked this, and sometimes if you hear like popular faces or voices consider Christianity, Jordan Peterson literally says, "I don't even know what would happen if you fully believed that."
Yeah.
Wesley F. asked Joe Rogan, "What do you think about Jesus?" And Joe's like, I don't even know fully what would happen if you bought into that. And he says, well, it's a lot that you have to buy into. And it's because it changes everything.
Yeah.
And so Tim Keller once said, when people are considering Christianity, an atheist would say, well, you're just a Christian because you want to believe that your loved ones are in heaven. So you have like this moral bias.
Yeah.
And he says, but people forget the bias that the secular, the non-Christian has, because they would have to give up a whole lot to believe in that too. So you could say, well, the Christian just wants to see his loved ones after death. Well, you could say the atheist just wants to keep all of his sin.
Same bias. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes more faith though. So the second thing we came up against is that increasingly more and more, all of our message, and mine, since mine was more public on the podcast and traveling around and speaking at different places, the message was purely gospel and God glorifying. And if we want this, it wasn't a necessity, but it was like, what if we combined the force of the message to actually the merch too, so that I was saying one thing and wearing the same thing, instead of saying one thing and wearing something different. Not that it was bad, but it's like, would it help if we combined the message together? And that finally came to a head. I don't even know what the catalyst was, Parker. Do you guys remember, like, when we're finally like, hey, well, let's do it?
Yeah. Our revenue was dropping year over year, and we didn't really feel like, we felt like what could be contributing to that was the fact that like our hearts weren't really aligned with the message that we were conveying as a brand. Like we were living one way, and then we were like always putting our customer first, which we still do, but we were almost trying to build everything around a particular like customer avatar type of person that didn't really believe the same things that we believed. And so at that point we were like, all right, well, we've now spent the last 3 years kind of creating products for this person that isn't even buying the stuff anyway, because our revenue is dropping. And like, what is it, like, we might be out of business in 5 years. Like, what are we doing? And so we kind of met, and we're just like, what if we just like, you don't have to sell Christian stuff to be a Christian apparel company, Christian run apparel company, but what if we just like incorporated some faith themes in some of our products, and maybe people would like it, and maybe they won't, and maybe we'll go out of business, and maybe we'll go out of business anyway, and we'll do something else, and that's fine, because God is sovereign, and like we're totally content, and like we're gonna be in heaven for eternity, And so kind of having that eternal mindset, and I think the Lord like humbled us, or at least humbled Tyler and I, Granger. I know you're kind of doing a lot of things, Granger, so maybe you didn't feel the weight quite as much as we did, but I'm just like forcing us to just be like, all right, like, you're a Christian now. You thought your business was just going to explode. I'm showing you that I could take it away at any moment. And so us three met like 6, 7, 8 months ago, and thought, what if we, I think it was your idea, Granger. You were like, what if I just like can't, if there's something that I read in scripture like during a certain week, and I was thinking about that theme, what if we threw it on a shirt or a hat or a hoodie? And what if we like started being a little bit more open with our faith, like on our social media, and showed our faces a little bit more? And we kind of found this opening, I think, in the market of people who just like want candid, straight conversations about their faith, and who also are just like normal guys, if that makes sense. That was a long answer.
Question, please.
Yeah, that was
You asked where that came from.
super vulnerable. Yeah. And I agree. You know, I was there, and it feels good where the company is now. And
at the time, like our marketing director quit, and
Yeah.
I don't blame him at all for doing that.
yeah,
But it's like getting broken up with a girlfriend. It's like at its very fundamental level, that person is saying my life is better without you in it. And
Yeah.
so from a business perspective, it's like, I don't believe in this anymore. I'm leaving. I'm not saying, hey, didn't believe in like us, like in the direction we were taking with Christianity. I just mean he didn't believe in like the direction of the company in general. And so he went and did something else, which like I completely understand was better for you. Got to do what's best for you and your family. But the point I'm making is like, it's just like a wake up call when it's like, oh, like your best friend doesn't even believe in the company anymore. He's leaving.
Was it believe in the company, or was it he just wanted to go he loves sports and that's where his heart is?
I think it's both.
You know what's crazy when I hear you say this story? It truly feels like it's like a 30 for 30, and this was like the moment when everything changed. It hasn't yet. We're still, like, it hasn't changed, but it feels like when you told that story just now, it feels like you're going to say, and then 7 years went by, and then look at us.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe, or maybe.
And that was the beginning of all.
Or maybe not, or maybe we stay at a small company and
it might
that's
not.
totally fine.
Well, look, regardless, brands change over decades. I mean, we've been doing this for over a decade now. And so I think we are naturally evolved. Like, you know, we started this when we were in our 20s or whatever. And we all drank then and did some of the things that Earl portrayed through his songs and videos. And we don't drink anymore. So I think it's important to be authentic and real with what you're selling, and customers can kind of sniff that out these days with social media, and it just aligns. To answer your question, it just aligns. Like, we could still sell shirts that say beer, but it's not who we are. We love Jesus, so we put Bible verses on shirts now. Makes sense to me.
That's a simple way to say it.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to say to close out that section of faith? Granger, you go
No,
ahead.
that was a wild tangent from us on the 1%er group and Group Me.
Yeah. We can move on to a little bit of freedom here. We don't have much time left. We spent it mostly on faith. I just had like a few things written down here that were kind of interesting in the news. Zach and I were sitting in the lobby this morning watching our TV, and we just see these Elon Musk protesters. There's like thousands of them out there with signs. And some of the signs were so funny. I'm trying to think of what they said, but it was like 2025, the year to fight. And everyone was like, Elon Musk did not. He's an unelected billionaire in control of thousands and thousands of taxpayers' dollars. And they were just like cussing like on Fox News. And I was like, man, this is just crazy. People just get so angry. They are so, like, they literally believe 2025 is like, this is like going to be a year of war. now because they think Elon Musk is going to be so corrupt with the taxpayers' dollars. And Elon's literally just like, I'm just trying to make things a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
The whole time you were saying that, I was just thinking in my mind about the buck that my buddy texted me that scored 168 that he shot this year in Dimmitt County, and bass fishing. Like, so that's how my brain works, man. I just don't care at all about people getting mad at Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just my brain. It doesn't mean it's not important and we shouldn't talk about it, but I just think about hunting and bass fishing.
I think that it is just important to like consider like the issues going on in the world though.
Yeah, I've always been bad at that. I need to be better.
But like then there's a certain extent where like politics become an idol, you know? And so to
It becomes a religion for sure.
So to a certain extent, like we do like, because freedom is like a pillar of our brand in that like, I think that we can still appreciate the fact that we have freedom of speech to talk into a camera right now and to talk candidly about our faith. Like ultimately that is freedom.
I'm not saying I don't care
people have
about
died
freedom by any means. Hopefully that was clear. I'm saying I don't care about the Democrat meme of that girl screaming about Elon Musk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put it up, Brian, on the screen.
Is that real? What are you talking about?
What?
There's a girl screaming?
No, I mean that meme that went viral.
That was from
4
Trump. It
years
was
ago.
from Trump getting elected in
Yeah.
20. That was 8 years
that's
ago.
not Elon Musk.
2016.
Like
That's what I think
dude,
when I hear about
insane.
people getting mad at Elon. Like, why?
Insane, man.
People like dedicate their lives to.
I'll tell you guys off camera after this podcast is over. Somebody that we all three know that is really. I'll explain in a minute. It's bad.
All right. Well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There it is,
Yeah.
Brian.
Brian, pull it up.
Yeah.
We can move on to outdoors. Tyler.
The only thing I got from outdoors was I was watching our buddy Robert Terkla. He started a new channel, by the way. He hadn't posted on Lunkers TV.
Yeah.
So when Parker sent us that the other day,
Yeah.
and I haven't dove too far into it, but I watched one of his videos and he was stocking a pond. He likes to like buy places.
Yeah.
He fixes it up, then he sells
Flips them,
it.
yeah.
But anyway, he was buying F1s from a fishery. Do you know what an F1 is?
A bass?
Type of bass?
Yeah. I've heard of it.
About like 1,500, and they were all F1s. I have no idea what that means, but
Should
I'm
we
sure
go
they're
fishing?
good.
Or is he going to sell it before?
Yeah,
we
why
could
don't
actually-
you text him for the spring thing?
we go yeah.
The ones he was stocking, they won't be ready for a couple years, but he's got another place.
Okay.
That didn't really open a topic of conversation, but
We need to be on the water in next month. We need to go to Inks or someplace and get on the water.
which brings a new question. I was with Chad this weekend. He said you're selling your boat.
I mean, it's been for sale. No one's
Why?
buying it, so I guess I'll use it.
Why?
You know, I've had it for 3 years. I'm like,
You want a new one or no?
no, I was just like,
It's so fun.
Is
We
it?
go with you, me, and Lincoln.
Okay. I've
never
Parker
even been
didn't
on it.
go, but
maybe I'll just keep it. Brian's been on it a couple times.
yeah, dude, that is so fun.
I feel guilty. I walk in there and I see it, and I'm like, why do I have this? Johnny, sell this. But he hasn't been able to. But yeah, I just got the new registration, so it's now that it's going to be
Just
March.
Keep it. You're creating memories with Lincoln, and then Mav will do the same with him.
Yeah.
And it's fun to go a couple times a year.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I got. Oh, I do have one trivia question to finish it off.
Okay.
Outdoors related. Which state has the most wild hogs?
Texas. It's something in the South. I would say Texas, but maybe Alabama, Mississippi. But Texas, based on, it's like when you ask somebody, where are the most sales of Yee apparel? Well, Texas and California, because they're the biggest states. So there's a lot of surface area for hogs to be running around on.
Let me
in Texas.
throw out the wild card and say Florida.
Let me see who is second. Hold on.
I feel like it's not Texas because he wouldn't.
Because he asked it that way.
You wouldn't ask.
Texas has the most wild hogs, 2.6 million. Florida only has just over 500,000.
Okay.
So literally 2.6 million hogs
Wow.
running around Texas. That's how bad those things are. All right, last trivia question. I can't resist. Which state, this one's faith related, which state has the most churches per capita? So in relation to its
Utah.
population.
Tennessee.
Non-heretical churches.
Tennessee.
That's a good guess.
Sorry, Mormons.
How many? Say the question again. How many churches per?
Which state has the most churches per capita?
Man,
Texas?
I have preached more in Alabama than I have played music in Alabama.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, it's been insane how many times I've been to Alabama.
Your guess is Alabama?
I think my guess is still Tennessee because I just remember in Nashville, I remember them when I lived there. They said that there were 2,200 churches in Nashville.
And then per capita means per amount of people, per population.
Yeah. per
Yeah, so
people.
it's not like total churches. It's who has the most churches in relation to its
Population.
like per 1,000 people.
I don't know. Texas again.
Granger, you were close. You're both kind of close.
Kentucky.
No, you were closer with your second choice.
With Alabama,
Yeah,
Mississippi.
Georgia.
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Interesting.
Huh.
There's got to be a lot of old Baptist churches in that
Man.
group of states.
Yeah,
though.
I've preached to Mississippi several times too. It's every street corner, every single street corner.
Yeah.
You remember that John Christ, which he's going to be on my podcast in a couple weeks, but you remember that John Christ like funny short that he did where he's like acting like a new
Yeah.
pastor.
I saw that.
He's like, we're planting, thank you for your support. We're planting right here. And like, as you kind of see around, he's on the street corner and there's like a church on every single corner.
No, I
He's
haven't
like,
seen that.
We're evangelizing the people of Highlands because they need Jesus here and they need to know the gospel. They need to hear about him. And there's like, you can see in the background churches everywhere. It's like, what are you doing? It's a funny analogy of what's really happening.
And it does bring up a good point because, like, to a certain extent, like, we do need gospel preaching churches. And so there could be a lot of churches, but in reality, they're just whitewashed tombs.
I
that
love
are
the
not
idea of
preaching the gospel.
revitalizing churches. I love that idea.
But then to another extent, we fall into the temptation to build our church brand more than actually caring for the lost. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I love that Emmaus does is they're like, if you're 10 minutes closer to this other church, dude, go to First Baptist Georgetown.
Yeah.
Or, go to Redeemer Round Rock. Like, that's going to make more sense for you.
Yeah.
And like praying for other churches in your city. I love that idea, and it's like convicting for me.
Yeah, such a great point.
Yeah.
I think that's lost and so many times. It's like, just build another one. Plan another one. Plan another one of your brands,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for listening this week. We'll see you next time.
Yee Yee.